Last year set a record for heat-related deaths in the United States, and this year is already shaping up to be worse in terms of high temperatures. Stephanie Sy is back now with this report from Phoenix in Maricopa County, Arizona, which has been at the center of heat-related deaths, and where rising homelessness in recent years is making even more people vulnerable to extreme heat.
Clay Hatfield has been living in this tent on a sidewalk in downtown Phoenix for the last 3 months. He's 69.
So I keep the table covered with a towel so that the table doesn't get hot. And then I got towels I'll put over the chair so it doesn't get hot. Try to cut down all the radiant heat that I can.
When we visited him in early June, it got up to 100 degrees, and he was bracing for hotter days to come. But you can only weatherproof a tent so much.
I'm not going to get it to a comfortable level. What I'm hoping to do is achieve a livable level. 110 is going to kill me. 90 I can live with.
Have you thought about going to a shelter during the summer months?
Well, here's the problem with the shelters is at about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, you have to leave the shelter. So then, in the hot, miserable time of the day, you're out on the street with nowhere to go. I tried it and it was miserable.
There is somewhere he can go. His tent is just a few hundred yards from a daytime center for homeless seniors. Even a short walk in this heat can scald the soles of your shoes. At the Justice Center, Hatfield can get a meal and a cold shower.
If I wasn't able to come here and sit and get water and just cool off and stay out of the heat, I wouldn't make it because I'm that sensitive to the heat.
Wouldn't be able to make it is not hyperbole. The elderly and unhoused are among the most vulnerable to heat-related illness and death. But Deborah Hernandez has the added risk factor of a serious heart condition.
I'm extremely concerned because I've already passed out once just from the heat, and I was not in the direct sun.
She only recently became homeless.
The house that I was living in, I was renting, was sold. I was hit by a drunk driver, so I lost my car. I went and rented a hotel room. I was paying up $2,200 a month just for a hotel room.
As she waits for the insurance claim on her wrecked car to be paid, she's just trying to survive her first summer without housing. Heat is an annual emergency here. The firefighters and paramedics in Phoenix, who we spent a few June afternoons with, frequently respond to heat distress calls, says Captain Chris Marini.
On those days where you mix it in with not drinking, not having proper nutrition, and then also, possibly alcohol or drugs, it's real easy where people, just become, altered, and now they can't take care of themselves and they just start overheating real fast.
In recent years, the homeless have accounted for about half of the total deaths associated with heat in Maricopa County. 2020 was a screaming alarm for officials here. One of the state's driest and hottest summers on record was also its deadliest. Over 520 deaths linked to heat, twice the number of fatalities reported nationally from all other natural disasters combined.
How are we doing this morning? Feeling okay? I see you got some shade there.
In response, the city of Phoenix created a new office, appointing health and climate scientist David Hondula as a sort of heat czar. It's the first publicly funded position of its kind in the country.
The heat illness statistics would suggest that in general we are not meeting the need yet for heat relief in our community. We've seen increasing numbers of heat-associated deaths, 400% increase since 2014.
Soon after taking the job, Hondula realized that he can't solve heat deaths without addressing homelessness.
Our best estimate is that individuals experiencing homelessness in Maricopa County are at about 200 times higher risk of suffering heat-associated illness or death than folks who have regular, stable housing.
And while having outreach workers hand out water and sunscreen can't hurt, Hondula says those and even the cooling centers are only Band-Aids.
We need to be thinking about housing affordability. We need to be thinking about drug and alcohol rehabilitation and recovery. We need to be thinking about just simply more shelters for folks in the city.
Climate change models say Phoenix should expect more super hot days.
The projections suggest that our hottest days are days that are in the 115 to 120 degree range right now, could become 4, 5, 6, 7 degrees Fahrenheit hotter over the next several decades. That's, of course, a great concern because those hottest days are absolutely the most dangerous.
In Phoenix, they're also piloting new technologies to try to lower the temperatures in these neighborhoods. They've begun spraying a reflective coating on certain city streets. Early data shows that the temperature on this surface is considerably lower than on traditional asphalt.
We could actually wind up with a Phoenix of the future that's cooler than the one we have today, even if global warming continues. So that gives us motivation to invest in and experiment with technologies like cool pavement that our street transportation department is applying. We have more miles of cool pavement here than any other city in North America.
But the low-tech tactic that may make the biggest impact is planting more trees. Leafy trees not only provide shade, the water they take in, for example, through the city's flood irrigation system, is given back as moisture and cooling to the air, a process called evapotranspiration.
The trees we're planting here, most of them are native to the Sonoran Desert.
At Borman Elementary School in West Phoenix, Joaquin Murrieta, a cultural ecologist, is helping out at a tree planting event run by a group of local NGOs.
Imagine when it rains in Phoenix, water, where does it go? It's a lot of water that flows on the streets, so we can guide that water to rain gardens along the streets with basins that will hold that water, with native plants, with native trees. So eventually we can transform our city to be a green city.
Amy Esposito of the Phoenix-based group Trees Matter says planting canopy in underserved communities and schools should be a priority.
We're trying to address where we plant trees from an equity standpoint, and so we're looking at where do we plant trees where trees are not currently invested in as much.
You don't have to look far to see that socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhoods have less shade compared to more affluent areas. Phoenix's city council recently allocated $6 million of leftover COVID rescue money to fund tree planting. But David Hondula's HEAT office is fighting an uphill battle with urban development. Phoenix is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It's already what experts call a heat island, where the lack of shade combined with heat absorbing asphalt can make it 10 degrees warmer than surrounding areas.
You're trying to build a heat-resistant metropolis in the middle of Sonoran Desert. Is that even realistic?
When we look at what climate models suggest we can do with our built environment, when we think about technologies that are becoming available, when we're thinking about low-hanging fruit in terms of how we might be able to just nudge behaviors a little bit to be safer in our heat, we think there's a lot of opportunity ahead for how this can be a thriving, sustainable city decades and centuries into the future.
But that kind of transformation will take decades of investment and political will. For now, the need for cooling centers has grown so much that faith-based organizations are needed to help meet demand. The Justice Center depends on donations.
What does the cooling center mean for your daily life during the summer?
I wouldn't have survived without it.
Here, charity means not only feeding the poor and giving them water to drink, but providing air-conditioned refuge from the relentless summer heat. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Sy in Phoenix.